You know, they say some moments define your entire life. I learned that truth on Thanksgiving Day when I stood in my daughter-in-law's gleaming kitchen and asked for something so simple it should have been automatic. A plate. Just a plate to eat dinner with my family. And she laughed. Not a nervous giggle or an awkward chuckle, but a full-throated laugh that echoed off her expensive marble countertops. Like I was the punchline to a joke only she understood. But what Jessica didn't know in that moment, what none of them could have possibly known, was what I carried with me that day. A secret 20 years in the making. A promise I'd kept locked in my heart. And a song that would shatter the perfect facade she'd built and expose truths that would change everything. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the very beginning, because this story doesn't start on Thanksgiving Day. It starts 2 decades earlier, when I first met a young woman named Linda, who would become like a daughter to me. And it starts 3 months ago, when I found something that made me realize fate had been preparing me for this exact moment all along. Before I tell you what happened next, I'd love to know, where are you watching this from right now? What time is it where you are? Are you someone who's ever felt invisible in your own family? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button, share it with someone who might relate, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this ends. Because what started as humiliation at a holiday dinner became something so much bigger. Something about justice and truth and the power of keeping promises to the people we love, even after they're gone. Now back to 3 months before that fateful Thanksgiving. It was late August, and the summer heat was finally breaking. I was in my garage going through boxes I'd been avoiding for what felt like forever. I'm 68 years old, and my husband Richard passed away 6 years ago from a heart attack. Sudden, unexpected. One day he was here, and the next he wasn't. After he died, I'd packed up a lot of his things. Not because I wanted to forget him, but because seeing his belongings everywhere made the empty house feel even emptier. So into the garage they went. His tools, his books, his collection of old vinyl records, boxes and boxes of a life well lived. That Saturday, I finally decided it was time. Time to go through everything. Maybe donate some things. Maybe keep others. Just finally deal with it instead of letting it sit there gathering dust and guilt in equal measure. I was 4 boxes deep when I found it. A wooden box I didn't recognize. Cedar. Beautiful craftsmanship. The kind of thing Richard would have made in his workshop. He was handy like that. Could build anything. I opened it carefully, and inside I found letters. Dozens of them. All addressed to me in handwriting I recognized immediately, even though I hadn't seen it in 10 years. Linda's handwriting. My hands started shaking. Linda had been my son Michael's first wife. They'd married young. She was 23 and he was 25. I remember the wedding like it was yesterday. Small ceremony in a garden. Linda wore her grandmother's dress. She'd looked so happy, so full of hope and love. And she'd been wonderful. Not just as Michael's wife, but as my daughter-in-law. She'd call me just to chat, ask my advice about everything from recipes to decorating, to eventually parenting when she got pregnant with Emma. We'd have coffee together every week, go shopping. She never made me feel like an intrusive mother-in-law. She made me feel like family, like a friend, like someone who mattered to her. And then 10 years ago, Linda got sick. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4 by the time they found it. She fought for 18 months, but the cancer was aggressive and treatment could only do so much. I was there when she died, holding her hand on one side while Michael held the other. Emma was only 5 years old, too young to really understand that her mother wasn't coming back, too young to process that kind of loss. Linda's last words were to Michael. "Take care of our baby girl. Promise me you'll make sure she knows I loved her, that I'll always love her." Michael had promised through his tears. We all had. But here's what I didn't know, what none of us knew. Linda had been writing letters to all of us, letters meant to be found later, letters she'd hidden away in that cedar box and apparently given to Richard at some point. Maybe she knew I wasn't ready to read them right after her death. Maybe she wanted them to find me when the time was right. I don't know. But sitting there on my garage floor that August afternoon, I opened the first letter. It was dated 2 weeks before she died. Dearest Helen. That's what she always called me. Dearest Helen. I'm writing this because there are things I need to say, and I'm running out of time to say them. First, I want you to know how much you've meant to me. You didn't have to welcome me into your family the way you did. You didn't have to treat me like a daughter, but you did. And that gift, that love has sustained me through so much. You made me feel like I belonged, like I had a mother again after losing my own. For that, I will be eternally grateful. I had to stop reading. Tears were streaming down my face. I'd loved Linda like she was my own, and losing her had been devastating. But I'd had to be strong for Michael and Emma, had to help them grieve and cope. I'd pushed my own grief aside. Maybe I'd never really processed it. I wiped my eyes and kept reading. I'm writing to ask you something important, Helen. Something I've thought about a lot as I've lain here knowing my time is running out. Michael is going to move on eventually. He's young. He has so much life ahead of him. And I want him to. I want him to find love again, to be happy, to give Emma a mother figure because Lord knows that girl is going to need all the love she can get. But I'm afraid. Afraid that whoever comes next will want to erase me, will see me as competition even though I'll be gone, will make Emma feel like loving me is a betrayal of loving them. My chest tightened. Linda had known. Somehow she'd known exactly what would happen. So I'm asking you, Helen. I'm asking you to be the keeper of my memory, not in a morbid way, not in a way that prevents Michael from moving forward, but in a way that ensures Emma never forgets she was loved by her first mother. That she doesn't grow up feeling like she has to choose, that whoever becomes part of their lives understands that there's room for both past and present. I've written things for Emma, stories about us, about her early years, about how much she was wanted and loved. And I've written a song, a lullaby I used to sing to her every night at bedtime. I've enclosed the lyrics and the melody notation. I need you to keep this song alive, Helen. Teach it to whoever needs to hear it. Make sure it doesn't die with me. Make sure Emma always has this piece of me. The letter went on. Linda wrote about her hopes for Emma's future, her fears about leaving so much unsaid and undone, her trust in me to help guide them all through the grief that was coming. And at the bottom of the box, beneath all the letters, I found it. Sheet music, handwritten by Linda. The title at the top said, "Remember Me Always, a Mother's Lullaby for Emma." I sat there for hours reading every letter. Linda had written to Michael too, to Emma for when she was older, to her parents, to her sister. She'd poured her heart out knowing these words would be read after she was gone. And in every letter that mentioned me, she asked the same thing. Make sure Helen knows how much she meant to me. Make sure she understands how important she is. Make sure she keeps loving my family after I'm not there to love them anymore. I took the box inside. I sat at my piano. The same piano where I used to play while Linda and Emma would dance in my living room. Those had been such happy times. I carefully studied Linda's notation and began to pick out the melody. It was beautiful, simple but haunting, the kind of tune that stays with you. The lyrics were poetry, about a mother's love reaching beyond death, about stars carrying messages, about the wind whispering I love you, about how every sunset was a mother's kiss goodnight, about remembering always, always, always. I practiced that song every day for weeks, learned it by heart, sang it until I could perform it without the sheet music. And as I sang, I thought about Linda, about the promise I'd made at her bedside, about how Michael had eventually started dating again 3 years after Linda died, about how he'd met Jessica at a work conference, about how Jessica had seemed nice enough at first, friendly, outgoing, interested in being part of the family. But over the past 5 years since Michael and Jessica married, I'd watched something shift. Jessica wasn't cruel exactly, at least not in obvious ways. But there were little things. The way she'd change the subject whenever Linda's name came up. The way she'd remove photos of Linda from Michael's house one by one, replacing them with new photos of her and Michael. The way she'd suggest Emma spend less time dwelling on the past. The way she'd planned their wedding on what would have been Michael and Linda's anniversary and acted like it was just a coincidence. The way she'd redecorate Emma's room when Emma was at summer camp, getting rid of things Linda had chosen. The way she'd talk about Emma, needing to accept her as her real mom now. Emma was 15 now, a quiet, serious girl who looked so much like Linda, it sometimes took my breath away. Same dark, curly hair, same green eyes, same gentle spirit. She spent a lot of time at my house, more than she spent at her father's place, if I'm being honest. She'd told me once that she didn't feel comfortable there anymore, that Jessica made everything about her, that Emma felt like she was walking on eggshells, trying not to mention her mother because it would upset Jessica or create tension. That bothered me a lot. But Michael seemed happy with Jessica. And who was I to interfere in my adult son's marriage? So I bit my tongue. I welcomed Emma whenever she needed refuge. I listened when she needed to talk about her mom. I kept Linda's memory alive in my home, even if it was being erased everywhere else. But finding those letters, finding that song changed something in me. Linda had trusted me with this, had specifically asked me to make sure Emma knew about the song, had asked me to teach it to whoever needed to hear it, and I realized I'd been failing that promise. I'd been passive, accommodating, afraid of causing problems. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that wasn't what Linda had asked of me. She'd asked me to be active, to be the keeper of her memory, to make sure Emma never felt like loving her mother was wrong. And lately, Emma had been pulling away even from me, getting quieter, more withdrawn. She'd stopped talking about Linda as much, stopped asking to look at old photos. I'd thought maybe she was just growing up, getting to that teenage phase where they separate from family. But now I wondered if it was something else. If Jessica had finally succeeded in making Emma feel like her mother was someone to forget instead of someone to remember. So I made a decision. I would wait for the right moment. And when that moment came, I would keep my promise to Linda. I would make sure Emma heard that song. Make sure she knew her mother had loved her enough to write her a lullaby even while dying. Make sure she understood that remembering wasn't betrayal, that loving someone who was gone didn't mean you couldn't love the people who were here. I just didn't know when that moment would come. I didn't know I'd have to wait for Thanksgiving, and I definitely didn't know it would happen the way it did. October arrived, and with it came the planning for Thanksgiving. Traditionally, we rotated who hosted. Last year, it had been my house. The year before that, Michael and Jessica's place. This year was supposed to be my other son, David's turn. But in mid-October, Jessica called me. "Helen, we've just finished the kitchen renovation, and it's absolutely stunning. I'd really love to host Thanksgiving this year at our place, show everyone the new space. Would that be okay?" David doesn't mind switching years. I'd hesitated. Something about her tone put me on edge. But I couldn't articulate why, so I agreed. "Of course, Jessica. That sounds lovely. I'm sure the kitchen is beautiful." "Oh, it is," she'd gushed. "It's everything I've dreamed of. Marble countertops, custom cabinets, a professional range. It's like something out of a magazine. We're going to have such a perfect Thanksgiving." Perfect. That word should have been my first clue. Jessica was obsessed with perfection, with appearances, with making sure everything looked right even if the reality underneath was something else entirely. But I'd pushed the concern aside, told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself that maybe hosting Thanksgiving would be good for Jessica, would make her feel more connected to the family, would give her a chance to shine. The weeks leading up to Thanksgiving were busy. I asked Jessica several times if she needed help with planning or preparation. She always said no. She had it under control. She had a vision. She didn't want too many cooks in the kitchen. I offered to bring my famous sweet potato casserole. She agreed to that. Said I could bring one dish, but she was handling everything else. I should have found that strange. Usually Thanksgiving was a collaborative effort. Everyone brought something. Everyone contributed. But Jessica wanted to do it all herself. Wanted it to be her show. The Tuesday before Thanksgiving, Emma came over after school. She looked stressed. "Grandma, can I stay here on Thanksgiving? Just me and you. Do our own thing." I looked at her carefully. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" She shrugged. "Jessica's been going crazy about this dinner. Everything has to be perfect. She's freaking out if anything is out of place. And she told me I need to not mention Mom because her family is coming and she doesn't want things to be awkward. She said talking about dead people at Thanksgiving is depressing and inappropriate." I felt my blood pressure rise. She said what? Emma nodded, looking miserable. She said that Thanksgiving is supposed to be about being grateful for what we have now, not dwelling on the past. She said if I can't be positive and present-focused, then maybe I shouldn't say much at all. I pulled Emma into a hug. "That's not okay. Your mother is part of who you are. You should never feel like you can't talk about her." "I know," Emma said. "But Dad doesn't say anything when Jessica talks like that. He just gets quiet. I think he's afraid of fighting with her. So I just try to keep my head down and get through it." "But Grandma, I don't want to sit at that table and pretend everything is fine when I feel like I'm being erased." "Listen to me," I said firmly. "You are not being erased. Your mother's love for you is not something that can be erased. And you don't have to pretend to be someone you're not to make Jessica comfortable." Emma looked at me with those serious green eyes. "Then why does it feel like that's exactly what everyone expects me to do?" I didn't have a good answer. So instead I said, "Come to Thanksgiving, be there, and trust me, okay? Just trust that Grandma's got your back." She nodded slowly. Okay, Grandma, I trust you." After she left, I went to my piano. I played Linda's lullaby, and I made a decision. If the moment presented itself, if Jessica crossed a line, I would do what Linda had asked. I would share the song. I would make sure Emma heard it in front of everyone. Make sure they all understood what they'd been trying to erase. I didn't go looking for confrontation. But I also wasn't going to back down from it. Not anymore. Not when I'd made a promise to a dying woman who'd trusted me to protect her daughter. Thanksgiving morning arrived. I dressed carefully, a nice blouse and slacks, simple jewelry. I wanted to look put together, but not like I was trying too hard. I made my sweet potato casserole using the recipe I'd perfected over 30 years. It was one of Linda's favorites. She used to say it tasted like love and butter in equal measure. I packed it carefully in a carrier and drove to Michael and Jessica's house. They lived in a nice subdivision about 20 minutes from me. The house was a 2-story colonial, red brick, black shutters, very traditional looking, very respectable. I pulled into the driveway behind several other cars. Jessica's family was already there, her parents, her sister and brother-in-law, her 2 nephews. I recognized their vehicles from previous gatherings. I walked up to the front door carrying my casserole. Before I could knock, the door flew open. Jessica stood there looking immaculate, hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless, designer dress that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. She looked me up and down, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Disappointment, maybe, like I wasn't dressed up enough for her perfect Thanksgiving. "Helen, you're here." She said it without warmth, without welcome. Just a statement of fact. "Come in. You can put that in the kitchen." I followed her inside. The house smelled amazing. Turkey roasting, herbs and spices, fresh baked bread. Whatever else Jessica was, she could cook. The living room was full of people. Jessica's family lounging on the furniture, laughing and talking, making themselves at home. Michael was in the kitchen helping Jessica. He looked up when I came in and smiled. "Hey, Mom, happy Thanksgiving." He came over and gave me a quick hug. "How are you?" "I'm well, sweetheart," I said. "The kitchen looks beautiful." And it did. Jessica hadn't been exaggerating. White cabinets with gold hardware, gray marble countertops that probably cost a fortune, stainless steel appliances, pendant lights hanging over a massive island. It looked like something from a home design show. Jessica was at the stove stirring something. She barely acknowledged my compliment. Just a quick thanks without looking at me. "Michael, where did you put the good serving spoons? The silver ones?" Michael moved to help her search. I stood there awkwardly holding my casserole. "Where should I put this?" I asked. "Oh, just on the counter over there," Jessica said with a wave of her hand. "We'll figure out where it goes later." I set down my dish and looked around. Jessica's mother was bustling around helping with final preparations. Her sister was arranging flowers on the dining room table, visible through the doorway. They had a system, a rhythm, and I clearly wasn't part of it. "Can I help with anything?" I offered. "Peel potatoes, set the table, anything." Jessica finally looked at me fully. "Actually, Helen, we've got everything under control. My mom and sister and I have been working all morning. We've got a system going, and honestly, adding another person would just throw us off. Why don't you go relax in the living room? Emma's upstairs. Maybe you could check on her. Make sure she's ready for dinner." I felt dismissed, pushed aside, but I nodded and left the kitchen. I climbed the stairs to the second floor. Emma's room was at the end of the hall. I knocked softly. "Come in," she called. I opened the door and found her sitting on her bed looking at her phone. She looked up and smiled when she saw me. "Hey, Grandma." "Hey, sweetheart," I said, sitting down next to her. "How are you holding up?" She shrugged. "Okay, I guess. Jessica's been too busy to bother me today, so that's nice." "Have you been down at all?" "No," I said. "Jessica told me to stay up here until dinner. Said she didn't want anyone underfoot while they finished cooking." Emma rolled her eyes. "Of course she did. This whole day is about Jessica showing off her new kitchen and her perfect family. We're just extras in her production." "Emma," I said gently, "I know this is hard, but hang in there, okay? And remember what I told you. I've got your back." She nodded. "What are you planning, Grandma?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But if the moment comes, I'm ready for it." She looked at me curiously, but didn't push. We sat together talking quietly until we heard Jessica call from downstairs that dinner was ready. We made our way downstairs. The dining room table was set beautifully. White tablecloth, gold chargers, china that looked expensive, crystal glasses, fresh flower centerpiece, candles. It really did look like something from a magazine. Everyone was gathering around the table. Jessica's parents taking seats. Her sister and brother-in-law settling in with their kids. Michael carrying the turkey to the table. Everyone finding their places. And that's when I realized there was no place for me. I counted the chairs, 12 of them, all occupied or about to be. Jessica at the head of the table. Michael at the other end. Jessica's parents on one side, her sister and family on the other. Emma squeezed in between her father and her cousin. But me. There was no chair for me, no place setting. No acknowledgement that I was supposed to be there at all. I stood there, frozen. My mind trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This had to be a mistake. Maybe someone forgot to bring out another chair. Maybe they'd run out of place settings and needed to grab another. There had to be a logical explanation. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice sounding small even to my own ears. "I think there might be an error. I don't have a seat." Jessica looked up from the mashed potatoes she was transferring to a serving bowl. "Oh," she said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. "Yes, well, we only have seating for 12, and with my family here, we've run out of room. You understand? The table only fits so many." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Run out of room, at my own son's Thanksgiving dinner. I looked at Michael. He was very focused on carving the turkey. Too focused. Like if he just kept his head down, this awkward moment would pass. "Michael," I said, "there must be another chair we can bring in. We can squeeze together. Make it work." Before Michael could respond, Jessica laughed. That laugh, high and sharp and completely devoid of actual humor. "Oh, Helen, don't be dramatic. It's just dinner. You can make yourself a plate in the kitchen. There's plenty of food. You'll be comfortable in there. You can sit at the breakfast nook. Just dinner, alone, in the kitchen." While my son and his family and his wife's family all shared Thanksgiving together without me. The humiliation of it crashed over me in waves, but what hit even harder was that no one was standing up for me. Not Michael, not Emma, who looked horrified but didn't speak, not Jessica's family, who were all suddenly very interested in their napkins. This was planned. This wasn't an oversight. Jessica had deliberately set 12 places knowing I was coming, knowing I'd be the 13th person. Knowing she was excluding me. This was intentional. And as I stood there in that moment of crystal clarity, I realized something else. This wasn't just about me. This was about power. About Jessica establishing that this was her family now, her territory, her rules. And if she could exclude Michael's mother, she could control everything and everyone in this house. I looked at Emma. She had tears in her eyes. Looked at Michael, who still wouldn't meet my gaze. Looked at Jessica, who was watching me with a calculating expression, waiting to see what I'd do, waiting to see if I'd make a scene or slink away quietly like she expected. And in that moment, I thought about Linda, about the letters she'd written, about the song she'd created, about the promise she'd made me keep, about how she'd feared this exact thing, someone erasing her, making her family forget, taking control and pushing out anyone who remembered. And I made my choice. "You're right," I said clearly. "I'm not going to be dramatic. But before I go to the kitchen, there's something I need to do, something that's been waiting 20 years to be said." Jessica's expression shifted from smug to confused. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my purse. I'd brought Linda's letter with me, not planning to use it, just wanting it close, wanting Linda's words near me on this day. I pulled it out and held it up so everyone could see. "Before Linda died," I said, my voice steady and clear, "she wrote letters, to all of us. I just found them 3 months ago. She knew she was dying, and she wanted to make sure we understood what mattered. She wanted to make sure we kept our promises to her." Michael's head snapped up. His face had gone pale. "Mom, what?" Jessica stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is completely inappropriate." "Is it?" I asked. "Is it inappropriate to honor a dying woman's wishes? Is it inappropriate to keep a promise? Is it inappropriate to make sure that the people who loved Linda remember she existed? Or is it just inconvenient for you, Jessica? Because you'd rather we all forget Michael had a life before you, that Emma had a mother before you, that love existed in this family before you arrived?" "That's not fair," Jessica said, but her voice wavered. "This isn't about Linda. This is about you making a scene because you're upset about the seating." "This is absolutely about Linda," I said, "because if Linda were alive, do you know what she'd say seeing her mother-in-law excluded from Thanksgiving dinner? Seeing her daughter sitting at that table trying not to cry, seeing her husband too afraid to stand up for what's right. She'd be heartbroken, and she'd be furious." Michael finally spoke. "Mom, please, let's not do this now." Then I asked, "When is the right time, Michael? When your daughter feels so unwelcome in her own home that she spends all her time at mine? When your wife has successfully erased every trace of the woman you loved enough to marry and have a child with? When I'm eating alone in the kitchen because I'm not important enough to sit at the table? When?" The room was silent. Jessica's family looked uncomfortable. Her mother was staring at her plate. Her sister had her hand over her mouth. Emma had tears streaming down her face. And Michael. Michael looked shattered, like he was seeing clearly for the first time in years and hated what he saw. Linda asked me to do something. I continued. She asked me to be the keeper of her memory, not in a sad way, not in a way that prevented anyone from moving forward, but in a way that honored who she was and what she meant. And part of that, the most important part, was making sure Emma knew about something Linda created for her. "What are you talking about?" Jessica demanded. "What did she create?" "A song," I said simply. "A lullaby. Linda wrote it while she was dying. She used to sing it to Emma every night, and she made me promise that if Michael ever remarried, I'd teach it to his new wife. She believed whoever that person was would want to honor her memory, would want to give Emma that connection. She believed in people's goodness." "Linda was wrong about that," I said, looking directly at Jessica. "Because you don't have any goodness when it comes to her, do you? You see her as competition, a dead woman you have to compete with. And because you can't erase her from Michael and Emma's hearts, you've been trying to erase every trace of her from their lives. The photos gone, the belongings discarded, Emma forbidden from talking about her, and now me. Because I remember Linda, because I loved her, because I won't pretend she didn't exist. So you exclude me from the table, literally trying to remove me from the family." "I'm not trying to remove anyone," Jessica said, but she sounded defensive now. "I just wanted one Thanksgiving without constant references to Linda, without feeling like I'm not good enough." "Then be good enough," I said quietly. "Not by erasing her, not by making Emma feel guilty for loving her mother, not by treating people who remember Linda like we're the problem. Be good enough by being someone worth knowing on your own merits." "But you can't do that, can you? Because you're too insecure, too threatened, too small. How dare you?" Jessica started. "I dare, because Linda asked me to," I said, cutting her off. "She asked me to protect Emma, to make sure she knew she was loved, to keep this one precious thing alive. And I'm done failing that promise. I'm done being quiet. I'm done letting you control the narrative. Emma," I turned to my granddaughter, "your mother wrote you a song, and I'm going to sing it now, right here, in front of everyone, so they all know what they've been helping erase," Grandma Emma whispered. Jessica no longer mattered. Michael's silence no longer mattered. The shocked expressions around the table no longer mattered. All that mattered was keeping my promise. "Stand up, sweetheart," I said to Emma. "Come stand with me." Emma got up from her chair, came to my side, took my hand. I could feel her trembling. "Are you sure, Grandma?" she whispered. "I've never been more sure of anything I said." And then I sang. I sang Linda's lullaby, the song about a mother's eternal love, the melody that Linda had created in the final weeks of her life, the lyrics about stars and wind and sunsets carrying messages of love from beyond death, about remembering always, about never letting go of what matters most. My voice shook at first, but grew stronger with each word. I sang like I was channeling Linda herself, like she was there in that moment speaking through me to her daughter. When I finished, there wasn't a sound, not a cough, not a movement, nothing. Just silence and the ticking of Jessica's expensive clock on the mantel. Then Emma broke. She turned and threw her arms around me, sobbing. "Thank you," she said over and over. "Thank you, Grandma. Thank you for not forgetting her. Thank you for making sure I didn't have to forget her either." "That was beautiful," one of Jessica's nephews said, his voice small but clear in the quiet room. "Did Emma's mom really write that?" "Yes," I said. "She wrote it because she knew she was dying, and she wanted to make sure Emma always had a piece of her mother's love. Why didn't anyone tell me about it before?" the boy asked. "Because Jessica didn't want anyone to remember Emma's mother," I said. "Because it made her uncomfortable. But you know what? Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes keeping promises is hard. But we do it anyway because it matters." The boy looked at Jessica with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then he said, "That's mean. Making people forget someone who died. My goldfish died last year, and Mom says I can talk about him whenever I want. She says remembering is how we keep love alive, out of the mouths of babes." Jessica's face was bright red. She looked around the table and seemed to realize that every single person there, including her own family, was looking at her differently now, seeing her differently. The perfect facade had cracked, and what showed through underneath wasn't pretty. Michael stood up, his chair scraping back. "Mom," he said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. You should never have been treated like this. Not by Jessica, not by me. I should have stood up for you. I should have stood up for Emma. I should have honored Linda's memory instead of letting it be erased because it was easier than dealing with conflict." He turned to Jessica. "We need to talk. Not here, not now, but we need to seriously talk about what's happening in this house, how we got here. Why my mother is being excluded from the table and my daughter feels unwelcome in her own home. This isn't okay. None of this is okay." But Jessica started. "No," he said firmly. "No more excuses. No more explanations. What happened today? What's been happening for years? It stops now." Jessica's mother cleared her throat. "Jessica, honey, maybe we should give them some space. This seems like family business. We can take the boys and go get dinner somewhere else." "That's probably for the best," Michael agreed. "I'm sorry to ruin your Thanksgiving, but you didn't ruin anything I said. The truth doesn't ruin things. It just reveals them." As Jessica's family gathered their things and prepared to leave, the awkwardness was palpable. Her mother gave her a hug and whispered something I couldn't hear. Her sister squeezed her hand. Her father looked disappointed. They filed out one by one until it was just Michael, Jessica, Emma, and me standing in that dining room with a perfect, untouched Thanksgiving dinner spread across the table. "I should go," I said. "Let you three work this out." "Please don't leave," Emma said. "Please stay, Grandma. We can have Thanksgiving together. All of us. The way it should be." Michael nodded. "Mom, please stay. You're right, about all of it. And I need to figure out how I let things get this bad. But I want you here. You belong here." I looked at Jessica. She was crying now. Silent tears running down her perfectly made-up face. Mascara starting to run. Her dream Thanksgiving in ruins. Part of me felt sorry for her. Part of me wondered what had made her so insecure that she couldn't share love, couldn't honor the past while building the future. Part of me wished things could have been different. But mostly, I just felt tired. "Will you stay?" Jessica asked quietly. "Will you please stay, Helen? I'll understand if you don't want to, after what I did." "But please? Why do you want me to stay?" I asked. "Is it because you actually want me here? Or because now everyone knows what you did and you need to save face?" Jessica flinched. "I deserve that. I deserve your anger. What I did was..." She paused, searching for words. "Unforgivable. It was small and petty and cruel, and I did it because..." She took a shaky breath. "Because I'm terrified that I'll never measure up. That Michael and Emma will always love Linda more than me. That I'm just a replacement for something better. And instead of dealing with that fear, I tried to erase the source of it. But you can't erase love, can you? You can't make people forget. All I've done is make everyone resent me, including myself." "That's the first honest thing I've heard you say in 5 years," I said. "And yes, you're right. You can't erase love. You can't compete with a memory by destroying it. The only way to build something real is to accept what came before and make space for it alongside what is now." Jessica nodded. "I know that. I mean, I know it intellectually, but knowing something and actually doing it are different things." "Will you teach me?" she asked. "The song. Will you teach me Linda's lullaby? So I can sing it too. So Emma can hear it from more than just you." I studied her face. Looking for signs this was manipulation. But what I saw looked like genuine remorse. Like real desire to change. "Maybe," I said, "if you prove you mean it, if you show through your actions, not just your words, that you're willing to honor Linda's memory, to make Emma feel welcome, to understand that love doesn't divide, it multiplies, then yes, I'll teach you the song." Emma spoke up, her voice small but steady. I want to stay for Thanksgiving, with all of you. But only if we can talk about Mom. If I can tell stories about her without Jessica getting upset. If we can remember her as part of this family, not as something forbidden. Michael reached for Emma's hand. Absolutely. We should have been doing that all along. Your mother was extraordinary, and her memory deserves to be honored, not hidden. Jessica wiped her eyes. I can try. I can't promise I won't feel jealous or insecure, but I can promise I'll try not to make that Emma's problem anymore. That's all I'm asking, Michael said. Just try. Be willing to work on this, to go to therapy. To actually deal with your insecurity instead of taking it out on a child who lost her mother. Jessica nodded. Okay, I'll try. So we stayed. We sat down at that beautiful table. Michael brought in another chair from the kitchen, made a place for me, right next to Emma. We passed dishes, filled plates, and slowly, awkwardly, we started to talk. Emma told a story about how Linda used to burn everything she cooked, except for Thanksgiving turkey, which for some reason always came out perfect. We laughed. Even Jessica managed a small smile. Michael shared a memory about the first Thanksgiving after he and Linda were married. How Linda had been so nervous about cooking for his whole family. How she'd called her mother 5 times for advice. How the gravy had been lumpy and the rolls burned, but everyone pretended it was delicious because they could see how much she cared. I'd forgotten that I said. But yes, she was so worried about impressing everyone. And by the end of the night, she was laughing about the disasters and saying next year would be better. And it was, I said. Every year she got better. By the end, she was an amazing cook. The conversation flowed more easily after that. Not perfect. There were still awkward moments. Times when Jessica's expression would tighten. Times when Michael would change the subject a little too quickly. But it was better. It was honest. It was real. After dinner, Emma asked if I'd sing the song again. I want to record it on my phone, she said, so I can listen whenever I want. Of course, sweetheart. We gathered in the living room. Emma held up her phone to record, and I sang Linda's lullaby again. This time, Michael cried. This time, Jessica listened with something like understanding on her face. This time, it felt less like a weapon and more like what it was meant to be. A gift. A bridge between past and present. A way to keep love alive across the boundary of death. When I finished, Emma played it back, listening to my voice singing her mother's words. She smiled through her tears. Thank you, Grandma. This is the best gift anyone's ever given me. As I drove home that night, I felt exhausted, but also lighter somehow. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for years and finally set it down. I thought about Linda, about whether she'd be proud of what I'd done, about whether I'd kept my promise the right way. I decided she would understand. She'd been a fighter too, someone who stood up for what mattered even when it was hard. The days after Thanksgiving were interesting. Michael called me the next morning. Mom, I need to apologize again, for everything, for letting Jessica treat you that way, for not standing up for Emma, for letting Linda's memory be erased from our home. I should have been stronger. You're being strong now, I said. That's what matters. What are you going to do? We're starting counseling, he said. Both marriage counseling and family therapy with Emma? Jessica and I have a lot to work through, and I need to figure out how I let things get so bad, how I prioritized keeping the peace over protecting my daughter and honoring my first wife. That takes courage, I said. Admitting you were wrong, being willing to change. I'm proud of you, Michael. Thanks, Mom, he said. And Mom, I want to do something. I want to bring back Linda's photos, put them up in the house again, not hidden away. Not in Emma's room only, but in our living spaces, on the walls, on the mantle. I want Emma to see her mother's face every day, to know she's part of our family still. I think that's wonderful, I said. Linda would love that. Michael was quiet for a moment. Do you think she'd forgive me? For letting Jessica do what she did? I think Linda understood human weakness, I said gently. She knew we're all flawed, all capable of making mistakes. But she also believed in growth, in people becoming better. So yes, I think she'd forgive you. But more importantly, you need to forgive yourself and do better going forward. Jessica called me a few days later. That was harder, more awkward. Helen, I know I owe you more than an apology. What I did was inexcusable. I excluded you, laughed at you, tried to erase someone you loved. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm working on understanding why I did those things, why I was so threatened. My therapist says I have deep insecurity issues stemming from childhood. That doesn't excuse my behavior, but it helps explain it. I appreciate you telling me that, I said. But Jessica, you need to understand. I don't care why you did it. I care what you do now. You can have all the reasons in the world, but if your actions don't change, then the reasons don't matter. I know, Jessica said. I know. That's why I wanted to ask you something. Would you be willing to meet with me and Emma? With a therapist present, to talk through everything, to help Emma and me try to build something real instead of this dysfunctional mess I've created. I agreed. Not because I'd forgiven Jessica, not because I trusted her yet, but because Emma deserved every chance at healing, every opportunity to have a relationship with her stepmother if that was what she wanted. So, a week after Thanksgiving, I found myself in a therapist's office, sitting on a comfortable couch across from Emma and Jessica. The therapist was a woman in her 50s named Dr. Patricia Chen. She specialized in blended family dynamics and grief. Dr. Chen guided the conversation. Let Emma express how she'd felt over the years, the small ways Jessica had made her feel unwelcome, the erasure of her mother, the guilt she'd carried about loving Linda. Jessica listened, really listened, cried, apologized repeatedly. Then it was Jessica's turn. She talked about her childhood, about a mother who constantly compared her to her older sister, about never feeling good enough, about how that insecurity had followed her into adulthood, into her marriage with Michael. She talked about how terrified she'd been that she couldn't compete with a memory, how that fear had twisted into resentment and cruelty. I don't want to be that person anymore, Jessica said. I don't want to be someone who hurts a child because of my own issues. I want to be better. Emma, you deserve better. And Helen, you deserve so much better than what I've given you. The sessions continued, weekly at first, then bi-weekly. Slowly, painfully, things began to change. Jessica started asking Emma about Linda. Real questions, not performative ones. What was she like? What did she love? What would she think about things happening in Emma's life now? At first, Emma was suspicious, but gradually she opened up. Jessica brought back photos. Not just putting them back where they'd been, but actively creating new displays. A whole wall in the hallway dedicated to Linda. Photos from throughout her life. Her wedding to Michael. Emma as a baby. Family gatherings. Jessica even included the photo from Linda's last birthday. The one where she was thin and pale from chemo but smiling, surrounded by everyone who loved her. That one was hardest for me to look at. But Jessica had put it in a place of honor. She also stopped trying to be Emma's mother, stopped insisting on that title. Instead, she started just being Jessica, someone who was married to Emma's dad, someone who lived in Emma's house, someone who could be a friend or mentor or just a stable adult presence. And paradoxically, once she stopped demanding the title of mother, their relationship improved. Emma started coming home more, started staying for dinner, started actually talking to Jessica about her life. The changes weren't instant. There were setbacks, times when Jessica's insecurity flared up, times when Emma pushed her away out of old habit or lingering hurt, times when Michael had to mediate or call time out. But the trajectory was positive, and that's what mattered. For my part, I remained watchful. I didn't trust easily anymore. Jessica had shown me who she was capable of being, and that couldn't be forgotten. But I also saw her genuine efforts, saw her in therapy, saw her doing the work. And slowly, very slowly, I began to soften. The real turning point came 3 months after Thanksgiving. It was Emma's 16th birthday. In years past, Jessica had always made these big productions, elaborate parties with themes and decorations, events that were more about Jessica showing off than celebrating Emma. But this year was different. Jessica came to me and asked what Emma would actually want. Not what looks good on social media, but what would make her happy. I think Emma would want something small, I said. Close family, maybe a few friends. And I think she'd want to do something her mother loved. Linda always took Emma to the botanical gardens for her birthday. They'd walk through the gardens, then have lunch at the cafe there. It was their special tradition. Jessica nodded slowly. Would you help me plan that? A day at the botanical gardens, lunch at the cafe, just family. Keep it simple and meaningful instead of showy. I will, I said. On one condition. What's that? We include Linda, we bring photos, we tell stories, we make sure Emma knows this isn't replacing her mother's tradition, but continuing it, honoring it. Jessica took a deep breath. Yes, that's exactly what we should do. So that's what we did. On Emma's birthday, we went to the botanical gardens, me, Michael, Jessica, and Emma. We walked through the same paths Linda used to walk with Emma, looked at the same flowers, sat on the same benches. At lunch, Jessica did something that surprised me. She pulled out an old photo album, one I recognized as having belonged to Linda. I've been keeping this for you, Emma, Jessica said. Your grandmother gave it to me months ago. Photos of all your birthdays with your mom. I thought maybe you'd like to look through it. Tell us about those birthdays. Share those memories. Emma looked at the album, then at Jessica. Then she did something that made me cry. She scooted closer to Jessica and opened the album between them. This was my first birthday, she said, pointing to a photo. Mom made this cake shaped like a butterfly, but one of the wings fell off. She was so upset, but I didn't care. I just wanted to eat the frosting. They went through the album together, Emma sharing memories, Jessica listening, asking questions, laughing at the stories, being genuinely present. And I realized this was what Linda had hoped for. Not that her memory would be preserved in amber, but that it would be woven into the ongoing life of her family. That Emma could love her mother and also build relationships with the people in her present. That past and present could coexist. After lunch, Emma asked if I'd sing the lullaby. Jessica immediately pulled out her phone. I've been practicing, she said. Would it be okay if I tried to sing it with you? Emma looked at me. Is that okay, Grandma? Of course, I said. That's what your mother wanted, for the song to be shared, to be passed down. So we sang together, Jessica and I, our voices blending, Linda's words floating through the botanical gardens. Emma recorded it on her phone. Now I have both versions, she said. Grandma singing alone and both of you singing together. I can listen to whichever one I need. That night, Michael called me. He was crying. Happy tears, he assured me. Mom, I just wanted to thank you for what you did on Thanksgiving. For standing up, for keeping your promise to Linda, for not letting us forget, for giving Jessica a chance to be better even after how she treated you. I know it wasn't easy. Love rarely is, I said, but it's worth it. Emma's worth it. And Michael. Linda would be so proud of who Emma is becoming, of how you're honoring her memory now, of how you're building something new without destroying what came before. I hope so, he said. I really hope so. The months continued to pass. Christmas came, and that year we did something new. We created a memory tree, an idea Jessica had actually suggested. We decorated a small tree with ornaments that reminded us of Linda, a butterfly for her love of gardening, a book for her passion for reading, a musical note for how she loved to sing. Emma added a small framed photo of her and her mother, and underneath the tree we placed the sheet music to the lullaby. It became our tradition. Each holiday, we'd add something new to Linda's memory tree. And we'd share stories. Jessica became part of that. She'd ask questions, add her own observations about how Linda's influence showed up in Emma's personality. It wasn't perfect. Jessica still had moments of insecurity, still struggled sometimes with feeling compared or inadequate. But she didn't take it out on Emma anymore. She worked through it in therapy, talked to Michael about it, dealt with her feelings like an adult instead of a wounded child. Emma bloomed. That's the only way to describe it. She became more confident, more open, started talking about wanting to be a music teacher like her mother had been, started writing her own songs. She even performed Linda's lullaby at her school talent show, sang it beautifully while playing guitar, got a standing ovation. Jessica was there filming, crying, cheering louder than anyone. And afterward she hugged Emma and said, "Your mother would be so incredibly proud of you." For me, the healing was slower. What Jessica had done on Thanksgiving had cut deep, had shown me that even family could be cruel. That being a mother and grandmother didn't automatically earn respect or consideration. That I couldn't just assume people valued me. I had to be willing to stand up for myself, to demand to be treated with dignity. That was a hard lesson, but also an important one. I became more vocal about my needs, more willing to set boundaries, not just with Jessica, but with everyone. And people responded, respected me more, treated me better. A year after that Thanksgiving, we gathered again for the holiday, this time at my house, by choice, by invitation. Everyone wanted to come. The table was full, Michael and Jessica and Emma, my other son David and his family, a few close friends, and one empty chair, for Linda. We'd made it a tradition, setting a place for her. Not in a sad way, but in a way that said she still mattered, still had a seat at our table, still was part of our family. Before we ate, I asked everyone to share something they were grateful for. When it came to Emma, she said, "I'm grateful for my mom, for the love she gave me, for the song she left me, and I'm grateful for my grandmother, who made sure I never had to forget her." Jessica spoke next, her voice wavering. "I'm grateful for second chances. For a family that didn't give up on me, even when I didn't deserve their patience. For Emma, who's teaching me what strength really looks like. For Helen, who showed me that honoring the past doesn't diminish the present. And for Linda, I'm grateful for Linda. I know that sounds strange since we never met, but I'm grateful for the woman she was, for the daughter she raised, for the love she left behind that's made all of us better people." There wasn't a dry eye at the table. Later after dinner, Jessica approached me in the kitchen where I was wrapping up leftovers. "Helen, can I tell you something?" "Of course. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm glad you sang that song last year. Glad you didn't let me exclude you. Glad you stood up and told the truth even though it was hard. Because if you hadn't, if you'd just quietly gone to the kitchen like I wanted, I would have kept going down that path, would have kept being that person. And I would have lost everything that actually matters." "You didn't lose it," I said. "You chose differently. That's the important part. Not that you made mistakes, but that when confronted with them, you chose to change." "That takes real courage, Jessica." She smiled. "Can I ask you something else? Ask away. Will you teach me more songs? Not just Linda's lullaby, but other songs you know. Songs I can sing to the kids Michael and I are hoping to have someday. Songs that connect past and present. Songs that remind us all where we come from." "I'd be honored," I said. "And Jessica, thank you for becoming someone worth knowing, someone worthy of being part of this family." She hugged me then. A real hug, not performative or obligatory, but genuine. And I hugged her back. Because forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about acknowledging harm and choosing to move forward anyway. It's about seeing people's capacity for growth and giving them space to become better. That's what Linda had asked me to do all those years ago in her letter. Not just keep her memory alive, but help build something good on the foundation she'd left. Help Emma thrive. Help Michael heal. And yes, even help whoever came next to understand that love doesn't end with death, that the people we lose continue to shape us, continue to matter, continue to deserve honor and remembrance. Now, 2 years after that Thanksgiving, things are different in ways I never could have imagined. Emma is 17, thriving in school, planning to study music education in college. She sings Linda's lullaby to children at a local hospital where she volunteers, passing on her mother's gift to kids who need comfort and hope. Jessica is pregnant, 4 months along. She and Michael are expecting a baby girl. They've asked Emma to help choose the middle name. Emma picked Linda. The baby will be named Sophie Linda. A new generation, a new life. But carrying forward the memory of the one who came before. Jessica told me she wants to sing Linda's lullaby to Sophie. Wants it to be the song that welcomes her daughter into the world. Wants Sophie to grow up knowing about the Aunt Emma's mother she'll never meet, but whose love still echoes through their family. Michael has become more intentional about everything, more present, more willing to have hard conversations, more committed to making sure everyone in his life feels valued and heard. He's not perfect, none of us are, but he's trying, and that's what matters. As for me, I'm at peace. I kept my promise to Linda, protected Emma, stood up when it mattered, held people accountable while also offering grace. I learned that loving people doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. That family is something you build through actions, not just blood. That courage sometimes looks like singing a song when everyone wants you to be quiet. I still sing Linda's lullaby regularly, to Emma when she needs comfort, to myself when I miss my friend, and soon to Sophie. The song Linda wrote in her final weeks has become a thread connecting all of us, weaving past and present into something beautiful and lasting, exactly as she'd hoped. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to my story, for sitting with me through the pain and the healing, through the confrontation and the reconciliation. If you've made it this far, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to stand up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves? Have you had to choose between keeping peace and telling truth? Have you watched someone change from cruel to kind? How do you honor the people you've lost while still living fully in the present? Drop your stories in the comments below. Share your experiences. Let's remind each other that we're not alone in these complicated, messy, beautiful family dynamics. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. Subscribe so you don't miss more real-life stories about courage and growth and the power of keeping promises. Remember that standing up for what's right isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it means making people angry. Sometimes it means disrupting the peace. Sometimes it means being willing to be excluded or laughed at or dismissed. But truth matters, memory matters, honoring the people who shaped us matters, and teaching others to do the same matters most of all. That Thanksgiving when Jessica laughed as I asked for a plate she thought she'd won, thought she'd successfully put me in my place, established her dominance, proven she was the one in control. What she didn't realize was that in that moment, she'd actually lost everything, lost respect, lost trust, lost the family's goodwill, because cruelty, no matter how prettily packaged, always reveals itself eventually. But here's the beautiful part. Losing everything created space for her to rebuild differently, to build on a foundation of honesty instead of insecurity, to create real relationships instead of performing ones, to become someone genuinely worth knowing instead of someone just playing a role. That's the gift that truth gives us. It tears down what's false so something true can grow in its place. Linda knew that authenticity matters more than perfection, that love built on truth lasts, while love built on pretense crumbles. That's why she wrote those letters, wrote that song, made me promise to keep her memory alive, not for her sake. She was dying, she wouldn't be around to see it, but for Emma's sake, and for the sake of everyone who would come after. Because memory properly honored doesn't trap us in the past. It grounds us, gives us roots, reminds us where we come from so we know where we're going, connects us across generations, across loss, across the boundary between life and death. That's what Linda's lullaby does. Every time I sing it, I feel her presence, feel her love, feel her spirit living on through the notes and words she created. And I know that long after I'm gone, Emma will sing it to her children. Sophie will learn it and sing it to hers. The song will continue, the memory will continue, the love will continue. That's immortality. Not in never dying, but in leaving something behind that matters, something that shapes people, something that carries forward. Linda left that song, but she also left Emma, left a legacy of love and strength, left an example of grace even in the face of death. And she left me with a purpose, a mission, a promise to keep. I'm so grateful she did. Because keeping that promise gave my life meaning in ways I hadn't expected, helped me find courage I didn't know I had, helped me stand up not just for Emma, but for myself, helped me understand that love sometimes requires confrontation, that honoring people sometimes means making others uncomfortable, that truth, even painful truth, is always better than comfortable lies. So here I am, at 70 years old, still learning, still growing, still standing up for what matters. Still singing songs of love and memory and hope. Still keeping promises to the people I love, whether they're here or gone. And still believing that families, even broken ones, can heal if people are willing to do the hard work, if people are willing to face their flaws, to admit their mistakes, to change their behavior, to honor what came before while building something new. That's what we've done, what we're still doing. It's not perfect. We still have hard days, still have moments of tension or misunderstanding, still have to actively choose connection over conflict. But we're choosing it. We're showing up. We're doing the work. And that's everything. That's what Linda hoped for, what she trusted me to help create. A family that honors its past, lives fully in its present, and builds hopefully toward its future. A family where everyone has a place at the table, where no one is excluded or erased, where love multiplies instead of divides, where memory and hope coexist, where songs written by dying mothers become lullabies for generations yet unborn. That's the gift Linda gave us all. And I'll spend the rest of my life making sure it's never forgotten, making sure her love continues to ripple outward, making sure that when Sophie is old enough to understand, I can tell her about the great aunt she never met, who loved so powerfully that her song still echoes through our family 20 years after her death. That's legacy. That's love. That's what it means to truly never die. Because as long as we remember, as long as we honor, as long as we sing, Linda lives, and her love continues to shape us all.